June 17, 2026, Portia Anyamba, 59 years old, was sentenced by Judge Thomas A. Volon in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Tennessee at Knoxville.
New this morning, a former Oak Ridge National Laboratory employee has been sentenced to time in federal prison. This investigation by the FBI and U.S. Department of Energy found Portia Anyamba was acting in the U.S. under the direction and control of South Africa.
According to plea documents filed with the court in 2023 and 2024, Anyamba worked as a program management operational specialist in the National Security Program Office at Oak Ridge National Laboratories, ORNL as it's commonly referred to. ORNL is a unique facility located in the Eastern District of Tennessee that was established in 1943 as part of the Manhattan Project and is currently a United States Department of Energy facility dedicated to energy, innovation, and national security, among other things. An investigation led by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI Nashville Field Office, and the United States Department of Energy Office of Intelligence and Counterintelligence revealed that Anyamba, a former brigadier general in the South African Air Force, was acting in the United States under the direction and control of the Republic of South Africa, and provided materially false statements in connection with her efforts to obtain a security clearance. Anyamba was sentenced to serve 6 months imprisonment, to be followed by 2 years of supervised release. As a component of her sentence, she was also ordered to pay a $9,500 fine.
Well, the story is quite interesting because if you look at Portia's profile, she was an attaché at the South African Embassy in Paris, a military attaché, and she left. And the name Anyamba comes from her husband. Anyamba, it's actually a Nilotic name. When I first saw this, I was a bit puzzled because it's a Kenyan name and from the Luo, a tribe in Kenya. But it turns out she is a naturalized citizen of the United States. And that's why she was working at this place. She got a bit of a lenient sentence because it appears she didn't work in the most classified area because she didn't have necessary classification to work there.
Aha. So, but she is in fact an agent, a South African agent. You say a military attaché who does not necessarily, they don't necessarily have, they're not privy to any sensitive information.
Well, they have censored a lot of information. There are a lot of details that did not come out. And I think that's part of the plea bargain, that they don't have to ventilate some of the detailed intelligence information that could compromise the United States security interests. But it's quite common for this kind of activities in international relations. Countries spy against each other. They didn't spy against friends. It's quite acceptable. And you have intelligence officers that are accredited in different embassies. But she was not part of the diplomatic staff of South Africa. She was a naturalized American.
While under the control of foreign agents, Anyamba was in the midst of her application process for a United States government security clearance, which, if granted, would have provided her access to certain classified information. As part of the application process, she certified and submitted a form. The form, known as the SF-86 form, advises applicants that the provision of false information may result in criminal penalties. Portia Anyamba has a long and colorful history. She completed her schooling in the town of Sturksbreed and wanted to practice medicine. She was one of the first students to enroll for medicine at the Health Sciences faculty at what was then the University of Transkei, commonly called UNITRA. After the Craddock 4 assassinations, the 1985 murder of anti-apartheid activists, Anyamba, apparently inspired by a quote attributed to President Nelson Mandela, open quote, "The time comes in the life of any nation where there remain only two options, submit or fight," close quote. She dropped out of medical school and went to an ANC hideout and later went into exile where she received military training. Among those Anyamba encountered during that time was Chris Hani. Anyamba completed her studies in Nigeria in 1998 and afterwards joined the Air Force. She climbed the ranks and in 2000 became the first woman to command a South African Air Force unit. In 2007, Anyamba was appointed as a defense attaché in France, where she was the only female general in the region until 2011. Brigadier General Sibia, as she was known then, retired from the Air Force in 2011, later married and completed an MBA in the USA. Life after the military allowed her to marry and complete her master's in business administration in the United States of America. Daily Maverick reported that a Maryland University brochure lists her as among its 2014-2015 graduates. According to the brochure, Anyamba obtained an MBA degree which matches what the South African National Defence Force said on a Facebook post about her.
In a post from the SANDF on November 26, 2020, titled Embracing Our Collective Heritage, they featured a Brigadier General Portia Sibia under her maiden name, indicating that Anyamba dropped out of medical school and later went into exile, joining Umkhonto Esizwe. After completing studies in Nigeria in 1998, Anyamba integrated into the Air Force, later becoming a colonel and the first female to command an SA Air Force unit.
In February 2024, IO1 communicated with Anyamba and arranged a meeting to occur in Knoxville. FBI agents surveilled the planned encounter and watched as Anyamba met with IO1 and another individual known by the FBI to be affiliated with the Republic of South Africa. Although the group originally met at a restaurant in a Knoxville commercial district, they soon drove to a nearby hotel. After the meeting, Anyamba left the hotel and returned to her residence, where FBI agents watched her retrieve an item from her car and take it to her house.
Officer. In February 2024, the DOJ says FBI agents watched Anyamba at a Knoxville restaurant with the South Africa intelligence officer, where a laptop was discussed for another meeting scheduled. Later that year, the FBI stopped her, taking the laptop from her. She was sentenced to serve 6 months in prison, followed by 2 years of supervised release.
During the course of the investigation, FBI agents learned that Anyamba regularly communicated with an intelligence officer, identified in court documents as IO1, working for the Republic of South Africa State Security Agency, the South African government civilian agency. IO1 was known to the FBI as the SSA's then Deputy Chief of Station and former Acting Chief of Station at the South African Embassy in Washington, D.C. Anyamba pleaded guilty to one count of acting as an agent of the Republic of South Africa without notifying the U.S. Attorney General, which is in violation of federal law. Anyamba also pleaded guilty to one count of making false statements on a U.S. government security clearance application. While under the control of foreign agents, Anyamba was in the midst of her application process for a United States government security clearance, which if granted would have provided her access to classified information. As part of that application, she certified that and submitted a form attesting to certain information. The form was known as an SF-86 form. It advises applicants that the provision of false information may result in criminal charges. Oak Ridge National Laboratory is a uniquely important Department of Energy facility, said United States Attorney Francis M. Hamilton. Our offices and our law enforcement partners will remain diligent in ensuring that its employees and all government personnel entrusted with access to sensitive information are trustworthy, candid, and pose no risk to national security. He continued to say, "We are committed to protecting the laboratory and supporting the important work it does for our nation." When asked for a reaction, the Department of International Relations referred the SABC to the State Security Agency, which falls under the Ministry of the Presidency. No response was received